Story number 1.
What's a story you've been wanting to tell, but no one has asked yet? A few years ago, my boyfriend and I were handing out candy on Halloween night. We were running low, so my boyfriend left to go buy more. A few minutes after he left the house, he called me and told me that a little kid with the best train costume ever would be coming to the door soon. But that he's Oliver and not Thomas the Tank Engine. The kid had been crying to his dad that everyone thought he was Thomas the Tank Engine. A few minutes later, the kid shows up in the coolest train costume ever. The costume is made out of cardboard, and it's literally the whole train with the kid in the middle. It even had an area in the chimney spout that opened and you put the candy in. I opened the door and I'm all like, oh my god, Oliver the Tank Engine. I love Oliver. He's my favorite. And the kid just lost it. So did his dad. He was so freaking happy that I knew he was Oliver and not Thomas. His dad was filming everything. He looked so happy and shocked that I knew he was Oliver. As they were walking away, I kept hearing the kid say to his dad, she knew I was Oliver, she knew I was Oliver. I then closed the door and cried. It was so precious.
Story number 2.
What is the most heartwarming scene you have ever witnessed in a public place? In flight between San Francisco and Fort Wayne, it was clear that the kid across the aisle from me was flying alone, maybe visiting her grandparents or being shuttled from one divorced parent to the other. When the flight attendant comes by to take drink orders, I ask if I might have 2 of their little bottles of water. I'm a weightlifter and a pretty big guy. The attendant nods, then without missing a beat the kid gets a mischievous grin on her face and pipes up, and I'll have 2 Cokes, please. The row behind her on the plane cracks up. The flight attendant glances back at me and quips, see what you started? The kid beams. The airline had sat her alone in the row. I guess I can understand why, but it's a long flight for a kid alone. She's singing a catchy little tune to herself, and so when the drinks are delivered I decide to make conversation, asking her what she's singing. Oh that, she says, clearly happy to have someone to talk to. Well, Grandma's always surprised when I visit by plane. You know, how far you can come and how fast. I don't think they had many planes when she was little. I mean, seriously, they had a horse. Anyway, Grandma would tell me that she'd think of me from time to time and say to herself, I wonder where you are. I wonder where you are going. Then she'd always add, someplace important, I'm sure. I made it into a song for us. I love my grandma. Right now I'm on my way to Grandma's house and I'm just singing that song to myself and thinking the same about her. I wonder where you are. I wonder where you are going. That's all. Wow, I say, that's really sweet. So, is it just you and Grandma or is your mom or dad coming out later? Oh, everyone will be there and Mom's been out for 2 weeks already, making arrangements. Arrangements? For Grandma's funeral. Boom. It was like being hit in the gut. In retrospect maybe I should have seen it coming. A huge frog takes up residence in my throat and I realize she's been singing, I wonder where you are, about her grandma who's gone. Seeing my distress she reaches across the aisle to pat me on the arm. Don't feel sad, she says. Grandma lived a really long and happy life and at the end she was getting pretty tired. I just nod, unable to speak. We land and say our goodbyes as the stewardess hurries back to get her. A little girl with a brave smile waving goodbye to a 6 feet 4 inches, 259-pound brute trying desperately not to cry like, well, a little girl. Away she goes, full of life and courage, singing her little song. Sometimes when I see a family at the supermarket or ice cream stand I'll think of that kid and start humming her song. I wonder where you are. I wonder where you're going. Some places are important, I'm sure.
Story number 3.
What is the most wholesome thing you have seen? I had a teacher in high school who had a reputation as being the super tough and mean, older African-American lady. She taught health class. There was a mandatory CPR class that we had to pay for, and there was no way I could pay for anything in those days. CPR day came, and she told me to go with the other students. I gave her a confused look to which she replied, "You're good, baby." And she had paid for me. Later in the year, I fell asleep in her class. It was a home game day, basketball, and she told me to lay back down after the bell had rung. It was the last period of the day. She told me she'd wake me up before I had to report to the gym. She dimmed the lights, and played some light jazz while she did her work at the computer. I hadn't been sleeping well at home and I'm guessing she knew. I woke up when she brought the lights back up and she handed me one of her cup of soup she had warmed up. We never really spoke much, but she had my back and I made sure she knew I had hers. On senior night, they introduced the players and say some stuff about them as they walked to center court, typically with parents arm in arm. When it was almost my time to walk, she saw that I was alone. Bless her heart, she about fell down from her seat running towards me. She put her arm through mine and just looked forward, chin up proud as hell as they read my stats and grades. I remember that walk and how I wish I had a picture or recording from that day showing how big I must have been smiling. My friends' mothers had tears in their eyes. They made sure to invite me to dinner with them after the game and I made sure it was okay that I brought my teacher. She politely declined and just told me she was proud of me. After I had graduated, and was a bit better on my feet, I returned to visit her. It was honestly the only thing that could get me back in that place. Each time I'd bring flowers and food and made sure to do it in front of students and made sure they knew to respect her.